Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. On the show today, we focus on the India-U.S. trade deal, and as I had promised, we are diving into the fine print today. Now that key details are available, we are going to break down what the agreement really means, especially in terms of what India gets and gains. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who led the negotiations, has described the pact as a landmark trade victory. India, he says, has secured preferential access to a $30 trillion U.S. market, along with comprehensive tariff rationalization, zero duty access across major product categories, enhanced digital and technology cooperation, and a carefully calibrated framework to safeguard India's farmers, MSMEs, and the domestic industry.
पूरे देश में खुशी की लहर है। देश के हर क्षेत्र में बहुत ही उत्साह है भविष्य को लेकर, और मानो आने वाले दिनों में जिस प्रकार से नए अवसर, नए मौके खुलते हैं, जिस प्रकार से हमारे निर्यातकों के लिए बहुत बड़े पैमाने पे यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, जो दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था है, लगभग $30 ट्रिलियन की अर्थव्यवस्था, अब हमारे निर्यातकों के लिए मोस्ट प्रिफर्ड ड्यूटी के साथ खुलती है। और जिस प्रकार से हमारे किसानों के हितों का संरक्षण किया गया है।
So how do the tariff changes benefit Indian exports? Well, India's export base of $86.35 billion to the United States in 2024 now stands to gain from major tariff restructuring. Reciprocal tariffs, which were as high as 50% on several Indian products, have been substantially reduced. Of the total exports, $40.96 billion was subject to these tariffs. Now, under the agreement, duties on $30.94 billion worth of exports have been cut from 50% to 18%, while tariffs on another $10 billion worth have been reduced from 50% to zero. That means a significant share of Indian goods entering the U.S. market will now enjoy sharply lower or completely duty-free access, improving price competitiveness. Sectorally, the gains are wide-ranging. Textile exports see tariffs drop from 50% to 18%, while silk secures zero duty access, opening opportunities in a $113 billion U.S. market. Tariffs on gems and jewellery exports fall to 18%, giving India better access to a $61 billion market. Home decor exports also move from 50% to 18%, targeting a $52 billion market. Toys see similar reductions, improving access to an $18 billion American market, and machinery exports now face 18% tariffs instead of the previous 50%, opening doors in a massive $477 billion U.S. machinery market. In agriculture, India maintains a trade surplus of $1.3 billion with the United States, with exports of $3.4 billion and imports of $2.1 billion in 2024. The U.S. will now apply zero additional duty on Indian agricultural exports worth $1.36 billion. At the same time, highly sensitive sectors, which include meat, poultry and dairy, remain fully protected under a carefully crafted exemption category. The agreement also secures zero additional duty access for $38 billion worth of industrial exports. Sensitive sectors such as automobiles have been opened gradually through quota and duty reduction mechanisms, while medical devices will see long staggered phasing schedules. Listen in to some of the reactions from exporters, businessmen that came in soon after the details of the agreement emerged.
It is a great agreement. It is a mother of all agreements that everyone, the entire industry was, exporting community was waiting for. I think this 18% duty structure, which puts India at an advantage in comparison to other competing countries, especially thinking of U.S. as an importing country in products like handicrafts, carpets, jewellery, leather, etc. It gives us a great advantage.
The historical deal between India and U.S. was, we are very happily noted, and it is good for Tirupur apparel exporters. Especially we are doing around 15,000 crores business with American market. This will be double in within 3 years time. and it will give more opportunity for employment, more foreign exchange, and we welcome the historical deal between the America and India.
जो अभी agreement which has come into effect from 7th Feb, so it has been widely welcomed by all exporters.
Beyond goods, the deal strengthens India's digital backbone, facilitating access to advanced semiconductor chips, server components and other critical technology inputs needed for expanding Indian data centers and powering the Digital India initiative. In perspective today, we decode the deal, the gains, the safeguards and most importantly, what this means for India's trade future. Two distinguished guests join us with their perspective. I'm pleased to welcome Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, Dr. Stuti Banerjee, Senior Research Fellow, ICWA. Thank you to both my guests for joining us for this very important conversation. Ambassador, to you first. This agreement has been hailed as a landmark trade victory. So from your perspective, how significant, how big is this deal for India's global trade positioning?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tina, for having me. As you have said, it's a landmark agreement. It's a historic agreement. In fact, we have been working on it. As the Commerce Minister said, we have been working on it for the last about a year or so. And it was highly anticipated, but it is extremely good that it has come. Couple of things, that we really need to see in this. Number one, that, when we are talking about India's march to Viksit Bharat 2047, then we need to recognize that no country has been able to develop, no country has been able to grow without focusing on trade, external trade, without focusing on exports. And as a result of the 50% tariffs that had been imposed on India from August of last year, many of our export sectors, they were suffering, like textiles, apparel, like leather footwear, like gems and jewellery, like marine products. All these like chemicals, all of them were suffering. And not only in terms of their exports to the United States having come to a screeching halt because we had lost competitiveness with a large number of countries, but also because they were, there was no market opening that was available. All the other countries were able to export much more. Right now, what we have seen is that the tariffs have come down. Of course, people have made this charge that earlier the tariffs on export of Indian products, these products to the United States were about 2-3%. Now it has come to 18%. But I think what we really need to keep in mind is that our other competitors in these areas, for instance, if we look at garments, apparel and textiles, it is countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam. They have, and China, they have 20% and China has about 34% tariffs. Gems and jewelry, it is Vietnam and Malaysia, they have 20% tariffs. India has 18%. So India is placed in a very competitive place as far as this is concerned. The second aspect, if you permit, Tina, I could mention is that as a result of the tensions on the trade issue that we were facing for the last 8-9 months, particularly from July of last year, the investments into India, they had also started declining. Neither were the foreign direct investment nor the institutional investors were also not coming because they thought that the relations with the United States, which is the largest market, it is a $30 trillion economy and its annual imports are more than $3 trillion. So it's a huge market, the biggest market. So the investment had started falling into India had started falling. And many other areas of cooperation between India and the United States, particularly on the strategic issues of Indo-Pacific and the Quad, they had also, been pushed to the back burner. So I think the signing of this agreement, this is just the first announcement that has been made, that has given great cheer, energy and enthusiasm. And while we might talk of all these figures and numbers, but the market sentiment is very important. And we have seen that the market has responded very positively, because on the 2nd February itself, we saw that the markets zoomed. They had been stagnating, they had been languishing, but the markets zoomed by about 3,000 points on the Sensex, but by about 800 points on Nifty, and also the value of the rupee, that was also, appreciated very significantly.
Absolutely.
So I think the markets have given a thumbs up, the industry has given a thumbs up. Of course, more details are yet to become available, but from the details that are available so far, I think it's an excellent deal for Indian exports, Indian business, MSMEs, and agriculture.
That's right. Dr. Banerjee, let me bring you in here. Based on the details that are available, one key highlight is that India now has preferential access to a $30 trillion US market. How transformative can this be for the growth of India's export sector over the next few years?
Thank you, Tina, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be back. As has been already pointed out by Ambassador Sachin, the US economy or the US market is very important for us. We have signed trade deals in the past with, we just had a trade deal with EU, which is also very significant. We've had agreements with the UK, with UAE, with Australia, which is what is showing you that India is diversifying its export markets as well, but that does not reduce the importance of the US market. And with this deal, you would find that some of the commodities that are going in, which now have reduced duties or tariffs on them, are very labor-intensive areas, such as, we have spoken about the gems, the leather industry. All of these are labor-intensive. So for us to continue to have that access is very important, because the industry finds that there is, while it's not very easy to shift markets from one to the other. It takes time.
Yes.
So when you have an established market, you want to protect it as much as possible. And for the Indian industry, especially in these sectors, the US is a very important market. So this trade deal today has been able to secure that aspect for the Indian industry, which is a very welcome thing. And as the United States is also diversifying its own export market. It is looking at more partners. So you can compete with newer countries in this, and you can show that your products are better. So I think this competition would lead to a better enhancement of our own industry standards of how we produce things, which is good for us. And it is, I think, also part of the larger self-reliant aspect that India has been going for, which is a component of a self-reliant economy, which is very important for the Viksit Bharat goal that we have. And I want to stress that this self-reliance is not just developing your own domestic market, but also engaging with, it's a very export-oriented concept that we have, unlike in the past when it was more about your own industry. So today we want to be at a competing stage to be able to compete with other markets as well, and to be able to produce our own goods and share it and market it well. So I think the US market is very important for Indian industries. It will continue to be so. And with this trade deal, that market access has once again opened, which has a lot of economic benefits, but it also elevates the stress that was in the relationship, which we will then, I think, have more openings, more talks in other areas. So the relationship as a whole will gain. So this is not just limited to economic deals only. It will have a domino effect on the other aspects of the relationship as well.
That's right. So that was a much needed announcement that took place. We now have some details that are available of the agreement. As you've heard, both our panelists say how significant it is for the domestic market, especially the labor-intensive sectors, which will be among the biggest beneficiaries once the deal comes into effect. But I'll try and understand more from you, Ambassador, on how the tariff reset will help India position itself in a much better position in the the global value chain. Ultimately, that's what our major objective also is. It falls in line with it aligns, in fact, with our Viksit Bharat vision, and it is one step ahead in a series of FTAs that we've been doing with a lot of countries. So the kind of tariff differential where India is now facing lower duties than the other competing nations like China, Vietnam, also Bangladesh. Help us and our viewers understand, does this mean that the global supply chain could shift towards India? It gives us a much better advantage, greater advantage compared to these countries, and that's where we could benefit most, especially in context of the global value chain?
No, absolutely. I think you made a very valid point, Tina, because what this agreement also helps us to do is to be more competitive as far as manufacturing is concerned. And, that is what will help us to get into the value chain. So, the fact that we were not able to get an agreement, a trade agreement with the United States, that was sending out a message to the outside world and particularly to the investment community that this whole issue of China plus one, it was, as far as India being one of that China plus one entity, that was not working out because, the biggest market had been closed to us, the United States, with a 50% tariffs. Of course, we need to recognize that some items like electronic components, like cell phones, like pharmaceuticals, etc., they were even at that time going duty free because the United States had seen whatever is essential for its own consumers, it would like that to come in duty free. So, our iPhones, etc., all the iPhones into the US market are going from India now. So that was going duty free, but there were all these other items that were not able to go into the United States because with the 50% tariffs. Now with this rationalization, and also I think what we need in this context, Tina, is to see what are the imports that have been allowed into the Indian market. You would see that people have been talking about, that we need to bring our tariffs down because we need to become ourselves more competitive ourselves. That is the way we'll be able to get into the global supply chains and the global value chains. And here, whether we are talking about, the graphic processing units or the data centers or high-tech areas, AI, robotics, etc. So the import duties on all those elements have been brought down very significantly, which means that India will be able to become, Indian industry, the input cost will be much lower. India will be able to become much more competitive as compared to the other entities and to the other countries which have been our competitors. And as I said in my first intervention, that when we are talking about the labor intensive, because we had lost a lot of, there was a huge joblessness that had appeared after August, when all the orders from the United States started coming down, and those importers in the US, they started placing their orders with Bangladesh, with Pakistan, with Vietnam, etc. They have, suddenly received those, customers back, their orders back. So on both these accounts, that our tariffs are lower than the tariffs that are payable by these countries, particularly, as I mentioned, China with 34%, Vietnam, etc., with 20%, Indonesia with 19%. So India is able to export increased quantities there. And also, as far as imports are concerned, we will have, all the most sophisticated equipment coming from the United States at much lower tariffs, because India has committed to reduce or eliminate tariffs on many of these items that are coming from the industrial goods, machinery, equipment that are coming from the United States. That will make our goods much more competitive and hence make them, part of the global value chains and the global supply chains. Tina.
Also, we see, Dr. Banerjee, that highly sensitive agricultural sectors, they remain fully protected. That's what the government has maintained. In fact, we heard the minister say that a carefully crafted exemption category has been created to protect these sectors. Is this framework similar to what we have seen in other deals as well? Or have we made some concessions with the trade deal with the United States? Because it has led to some concerns among the farmer groups, and there are concerns that we have perhaps opened up some sectors which could impact our domestic producers.
Tina, as what I have understood of the deal and what I have read, and I've also seen the minister's statement on it, I feel that agriculture and dairy is a red line for India's negotiators to cross, and that red line has been maintained. The Indian government from the very first day has maintained that it will protect its farmers, it will protect its dairy sectors, and you would find that a similar kind of statements were given out even when we were negotiating our other trade agreements, because India has always maintained that its farmers can, because of our farm holdings and the way our farming is done, it would be detrimental to the farming sector to open it completely. So those kind of protection that our farmers require, the agriculture sector requires, the dairy sector requires, I think are similar to what has been placed in other agreements. That is my understanding of the details that have been shared on the India-U.S. deal, that similar restrictions have been placed. That our farm sectors and our dairy sector continue to be protected by the Indian government, and that is unlikely to be opened up in the near future.
Okay, another question is about improving access to semiconductors, server components, high-tech inputs. It comes at a very crucial time. How important is this going to be for India's digital economy, our data center expansion, Dr. Banerjee?
See, digital economy and data centers have become very, very important for your economy, especially with the advent of AI becoming a very important component of your economy. So you're not only looking at how AI will improve, you're also looking at how you're going to be reskilling your entire employable population with the changes that this technology brings. But as you pointed out before also, supply chain is where we are looking at becoming the leaders in, especially with respect to the Indo-Pacific, in South Asia. We want to make sure that the supply chain factor comes in. We are the manufacturers here. We become the manufacturing hub. So for all of that to happen, we would need to move with the times, and this is where it is going to be. Data centers have to be, we are looking at how data centers can be established in India, because it not only just technology is extensive, they're also energy consuming. So you need to have that much energy to be able to run data centers. They're not very easy to establish and run. You would need collaborations on that. You would also want to have human capacity development in that. So you want resources. And as of today, we are building our own resources and capabilities in this sector, but it does not, hamper us if you have a partner who steps in and says, okay, we are willing to work with you on that. And I think that is where this trade deal is taking you. You are looking at a partner who has a slight bit of an edge over you right now to come in and step in and say, okay, let's work on this together, because this is not just for the India-U.S. trade deal, it is also how your economy is going to be shaping in the future. And it is for your own national economy's progress that you're going to be looking at this factor.
That's right. I think the negotiators understood this, and that's why the economic compulsions, the strategic considerations outweighed the trade tensions that we saw over the last few months. I mean, to be more precise, over the last year. Ambassador, do you think this is going to hold, and this economic engagement, deepening of economic engagement through the trade deal, will strengthen the strategic partnership that India and the U.S. have enjoyed, minus the rhetoric and the tensions that we saw over the recent months?
Well, I sincerely hope so, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I think the markets have applauded. The markets have spoken unequivocally. From the 2nd of February, when this announcement was made, the headline announcement bringing down the tariffs from 50% to 18%. This was a concern whether this bounce in the market that will stay or not. We have seen that as a result of the budget, Because of the STT, there was a decline in the stock market. Also, as far as the advent of AI, as far as the IT industry is concerned, we saw that the IT sector lost a considerable amount of its sheen. But still, the markets are doing well. That means the markets have given a big thumbs up as far as this agreement is concerned. And I am very, very hopeful because it is a win-win agreement. Normally what Mr. Trump has been able to get from other countries, and many of those agreements have not stood the test of the time, is because they have been unilateral advantage to the United States. Okay. Here we have made sure, we have taken a little longer, but we have made sure that it is a balanced agreement. It is win-win for both the sides. We are able to preserve, protect our red lines, but still we have been able to give access to the United States to its industrial products, and those are the things that we also need. And you know that there has been a clamor in India for a long time that we need to bring down our tariffs, we need to become more competitive, and we cannot become more competitive by by opening up to the world. And this is particularly so, in my view, Tina, because we have signed so many FTAs with so many countries, whether it is with EU, UK, EFTA, New Zealand, Oman, etc. Now, those are opportunities for us. We will be able to leverage those opportunities only when we become competitive. If I'm not competitive, I'll not be able to get into their market. So here, lowering our tariffs, I think this whole India signing not only the India-U.S. trade agreement, but also with other countries, that is a mark of India's confidence, India's resilience. And I think whatever actions have been taken in terms of even permitting imports into India, whether it is in the agricultural area, whether it is tree nuts, whether it is some of these soybean oil, etc., those are all items that India requires. And of course, industrial equipment that will help us to get more competitive, and that is the need of the hour.
That's right. We just hope that we are able to, through this transformative step, translate them into outcomes which further strengthen not just our economic partnership, but the strategic partnership, as Dr. Banerjee also rightly put ahead of the program. Thank you once again for joining us on the program. Time allows us to take up only that much. Thank you once again, Ambassador and Dr. Banerjee, for joining us with your thoughts and views. To your viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.